Dad, teach me to swim next time.
Our kind husband took our 5-year-old daughter to the beach in response to her cute request. However, he was swept away by a huge wave right before our eyes. Ah, darling. As he was swallowed by the waves, I screamed from the shore. The sound of my pounding heart echoed in my ears, and my whole body trembled. I despaired, thinking this would be our final goodbye forever. But 5 years later, at the beach, I saw my husband teaching a young boy to swim. It couldn't be possible, I thought as I watched him closely. One never knows when misfortune will strike. At 38, my 10-year-old daughter Bonnie and I experienced such a hell 5 years ago. My husband, in fact, died in a sea accident.
Hey, when is Dad coming home?
Your dad isn't here anymore. But you still have me, sweetie. He was supposed to be good at swimming. It was he who invited the family to the beach that day.
Christina, how about we all go to the beach during the next holiday?
Our daughter was thrilled at the suggestion. We thought it would be a fun family outing, but after he was swept away by the waves, a large-scale search was conducted, but he was never found. The police determined it was a drowning accident. Since his disappearance, I've struggled to move forward for the sake of our young daughter. But financial issues also tormented me. We couldn't declare him legally dead until 7 years had passed, so we couldn't claim the insurance money, and our lives were impoverished. On top of that, I discovered he had borrowed $300,000 from a loan shark. He had asked me to co-sign for a $30,000 loan to cover his restaurant's running costs, and I had signed without knowing the actual amount. Thus, legally, I had to repay the loan. I should have been more careful, but trusting him completely was my fault too. But I'm sure Carmen intended to work hard to repay it. I resolved to repay the debt by working myself. Determined, I sold everything in the restaurant he managed: buildings, land, cooking equipment, but even then, $30,000 of debt remained. For a single mother, this was a huge amount. To repay it, I worked as a supermarket employee during the day and at a convenience store at night. The relentless work schedule brought me to tears, but I couldn't afford to complain. My family wasn't wealthy enough to help, but they looked after Bonnie at night after I picked her up from daycare. We only spent a few hours together in the evenings. Bonnie, behave until Mommy comes to get you, okay?
No. I want to be with you, Mommy.
I'm sorry. It broke my heart to hear my 5-year-old's pleas, but I had no other option. Even the educational insurance I took out when she was born had to be canceled to cover living expenses. Working from morning till night and making my daughter lonely was hard, but as she grew older, she began to understand our situation in her way. Bonnie started helping with household chores to lighten my burden.
Mommy, I made an omelet. Try it.
Thank you. I will. Wow, it's the best omelet I've ever had. Despite being in 3rd grade, her consideration made me incredibly happy. The sweet and salty taste of that omelet, eaten with tears streaming down my face, is unforgettable. 5 years passed, and finally, I repaid the debt. My daughter, now 10, slowly regained her vitality. On a day when we could feel the peace of a stable life, Bonnie timidly asked me for something.
Mom, my friend went to the beach to play. I want to go with you too.
Sure. We haven't gone in a long time. Let's go next holiday.
Yay! Thanks, Mom.
I decided to take her to a nearby beach after a long time. I had no idea we would encounter such a scene. On the promised day, we were enjoying our time at the beach when I saw a happy family playing together. A man was teaching a little boy to swim with a young woman in a swimsuit, looking very happy. We were like that 5 years ago. So nostalgic. I was lost in memories, but then I heard a familiar voice.
Hey, Daddy's going to swim out to the deeper water now.
I looked at him again, stunned. He looked just like my husband, though he was much fatter than I remembered, and his hairstyle seemed different. Wait. Is that Carmen? It can't be. No, it's not. As the saying goes, there are many lookalikes in the world, but I secretly watched him through my sunglasses. Then I noticed something significant, a large scar on his mouth. Carmen had told me he got it from a fall when he was young. With this and other similarities, I couldn't help but believe it was him. Have you been alive? What's going on? My heart was a mix of shock, agitation, and strong anger. Had he been deceiving us all this time? Unable to stand it, I approached the woman and the 4-year-old boy who were with him. Watching Carmen swim out to deeper water, I spoke to her. Your child is adorable. Your husband seems kind too. Thank you. Is that your daughter? My daughter, a natural leader, quickly started playing with the boy, Henry. I envy your happiness a little. Actually, I lost my husband to the waves near here 5 years ago. What? Really? Though it was our first meeting, the woman named Janet was quite shocked by my story. She then shared her situation with me. I see. So maybe. Piecing together her story, I could predict Carmen's actions, but I didn't reveal the truth to her yet, thinking I needed more proof. However, my anger toward my husband wouldn't subside, and my clenched fists trembled. Just then, Carmen returned from swimming.
Huh? Why?
Seeing Janet and me together, he looked as if he'd been hit by a brick. Bonnie was nearby, but engrossed in playing with sand, she didn't recognize her drastically changed father. I made a friend. Her daughter played with Henry.
I see. Thank you for that.
Though he looked surprised for a moment, he quickly regained his composure and acted as if nothing had happened, though he avoided making eye contact with me.
I just remembered an urgent matter. Janet, let's go home.
What? We just got here. Seeing him in a rush to leave, I called out, not letting him escape. It's been a while, hasn't it? Carmen?
Huh? Who are you? My name is Rick. You've got the wrong person. I'm in a hurry, so excuse me.
He tried to act like a stranger and run away from me. Janet, however, wanted to hear my story. Actually, my husband has amnesia and doesn't know his past. Christina, if you know anything, please tell me. It could be a clue.
Hey! What are you talking about? You're causing trouble.
It's no trouble. I have things to say too. Great. We live nearby. Please come over. Janet was overjoyed, but Carmen turned pale, sweating profusely. We were guided to their mansion, a grand house resembling a castle. Her elderly parents, who seemed kind, welcomed us. It was obvious they were very wealthy. Later, I learned that Janet's father was a prominent landowner in the area, owning many apartments and parking lots, with Carmen helping to manage them. Inside the house, luxurious furniture filled the space. Though I felt out of place, I was determined to confront Carmen. Not wanting to involve my daughter in the mess, I asked Janet if she could stay with the housekeeper and play in the children's room while we talked. Janet agreed, and we five gathered in the living room. Actually, this man was my husband 5 years ago, named Carmen. What? Really? I quickly started, and Janet exclaimed in shock. I told them everything, that he was married, disappeared in the waves 5 years ago, and the hardships my daughter and I faced repaying his debts. Though they were shocked, the most flustered was Carmen.
That's a lie. It's not true.
Really? If his name is Carmen, not Rick, maybe he named our son Henry after his father?
No way. I really don't remember anything. This woman must be making it up.
As he continued to feign ignorance, I decided to show Janet and her parents the photos stored on my phone. There were numerous pictures from our wedding and of us living together as a family after our beloved daughter was born.
That's not me. Look closely. The body type is completely different, isn't it? It's someone else.
However,
No, he may be heavier now, but he looks exactly like he did 5 years ago.
and look at the scar near his mouth. It's definitely you. Hearing this, Carmen got flustered and began speaking rapidly.
No, it's not me. The scar on the mouth is just a coincidence. Besides, Bonnie didn't recognize me as her father, did she?
The room fell silent at his words. He smirked, thinking he had one, unaware that he had just dug his own grave. I never mentioned our daughter's name. If you had amnesia, how did you know her name is Bonnie? That's right. I never told you either. Guessing it is strange. Janet's parents chimed in.
Let's do a DNA test to settle this.
Realizing he could no longer make excuses, Carmen started trembling and collapsed to his knees. So, you've been deceiving us too. We thought it was a miracle you came to us, but it wasn't, was it? Having heard Janet's story at the beach, I had some idea, but this confirmed everything. According to her, she met my husband when she was in trouble. She had gotten lost in a bar district after a friend's wedding reception. At that time, a group of strange men approached her, and she couldn't escape. Carmen appeared and
Don't talk to my friend.
he ran with her to a crowded station. He wouldn't give her his name or contact information, so Janet gave him a note with her phone number and address. Though he took the note, he left without a word. Half a year later, he showed up at her home, drenched.
I don't know who I am. I've lost my memory. Please help me.
Feeling sympathy for his situation, Janet and her parents grew close to Carmen, and eventually, a child was born. However, since his background was unknown, they hadn't legally married, nor had Henry recognized him.
I fell in love with Janet at first sight. How could I tell her I was married and had a child? And I was in debt, too.
It's not just that, is it? You were careless at work. Your company was going under, and your debts kept growing. You wanted to disappear and leave everything to me. From the restaurant employees, I learned he had pretended to work hard while delegating everything to part-timers, all the while increasing his gambling debts.
It wasn't like that. I was simply drawn to her.
Oh really? You knew Janet was wealthy and saw a chance for a luxurious life, didn't you? You faked amnesia to get into her home. Cornered.
It wasn't my intention.
But his eyes were darting, and it was obvious to everyone he was lying.
You con artist. I won't forgive you.
Despite her father's anger, Carmen still tried to defend himself.
Yes, I came to this house because of the address on the note. I was amazed it was a mansion. It's natural for anyone to want to live luxuriously.
And? You faked being swept away by the sea to disappear from our lives?
Humph. Now that it's out, I admit it. I managed to infiltrate this house nicely.
Without any remorse, he made an outrageous suggestion.
Janet, why don't you pay my alimony? Then we can finally get married properly.
Enraged by his selfishness, Janet's face turned red, her eyes wide with fury as she glared at him. Are you joking? I'm definitely divorcing you, you liar. I'll demand alimony and child support. Her parents were equally furious.
Get out right now.
But what am I supposed to do now?
He turned to me, realizing his plight. The change in attitude was astonishing.
It was a moment of weakness. I'll return to Christina and Bonnie now. You understand, right?
Understand? Do you know how much we've suffered because of you? I'll never forgive you.
But I'll have nowhere to go. Please. Spare me.
Carmen groveled at my feet, tears, drool, and snot staining the floor, his forehead rubbing against it pathetically. I looked down at him coldly, saying nothing. Later, I officially divorced Carmen. He was found guilty of deceiving everyone, lying to me, saddling me with debt, and tricking Janet and her family. I sued him for $300,000 in damages, $30,000 in alimony, and $150,000 in child support. Janet also demanded alimony and child support from him. Even after his release, he would face a life of penance, but it was all his own doing. On the other hand, I felt refreshed and spent my days happily with my daughter. Although Janet offered to pay alimony for the infidelity, I refused. She was also a victim of Carmen. Our children, technically half-siblings, were innocent. We agreed to let them meet if they wanted. I hadn't told Bonnie about her father yet. She probably remembers him as a kind dad who taught her to swim. One day, when she's older, I'll tell her everything. Until then, I decided to live brightly and confidently for my daughter's sake. How did you like today's story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.